productivity and mental happiness are linked. So like people actually
Right.
do better work that's more accurate and more creative when they're happy.
All right, welcome everybody to a very special episode today. We have Tara Savelo on the podcast.
Yes.
There we go. Thank you. You're joining us right now. It's snowed in where you are, so we could
It is.
start there. What better time to do a virtual podcast than when you're snowed in?
Absolutely. It's a great time.
Well, thank you for making the time. And let's just kick it off with a little bit about when did you know you wanted to do makeup and be a stylist, I guess?
All right. Well, since when I was little, I used to every weekend with my best friend, we would go and get at Publix. This was in Florida. We would get like disposable cameras, go to the thrift store and pick out clothes. And my mom would give me her old makeup and we would recreate photos from magazines that we had torn out. So we would do like full photo shoots when we were like 12, 11, like for years. And so I did it a lot then, but just as like a hobby. And then I moved to LA when I was around 17. I just got in my car and drove there with some friends who lived in LA. And I wanted to be an actress. And so
When
I tried that.
For that drive, are you listening to any funny music like White Snake or something like that? What was funny?
There was three of us, three girls, and my friend Vanessa had her two dogs in the car.
Amazing.
And I had like a Honda Civic hatchback.
Amazing.
And all my belongings. And so it's like a two-door sports car.
That's very movie-esque. It's like very much a movie.
And I had a lot of like blankets and down covers. And so the whole back of the hatchback was just like an igloo. And we all smoked cigarettes at the time. So like there was a lot of like out the sunroof and then back into like the igloo of comforters of like cigarettes, two dogs in the back with her.
I love it.
We just drove all the way through.
Amazing.
A lot of music, a lot of like going as long as we could. I don't think we'd stopped at hotels because we didn't have the money. So we just took turns driving and sleeping, me and my friend Lindsay.
All of you were like more or less in the same place where you're taking a big leap and not knowing what's next type of thing, just going to check it out.
Well, two of my friends lived in LA.
Oh.
And so they were in Florida and wanted to get back. One of my friends needed to bring her dogs back and they wanted me to move with them. And so
you were the only one out of the friends taking a big leap, right?
Yeah, okay. Exactly. And so I just woke up and was like, should I do this? I asked my dad and he was like, go follow your dreams, do it. So I worked a job for a couple months. Like I had a goal, like, okay, if I have like, I think it was like $600. If I have $600, I can just go there.
That's amazing.
So I just saved it up and just left with whatever I could fit in my car, everything else I left behind, and gave it to somebody.
So let's talk about those early first days in Los Angeles. What were they like?
There was a lot of partying because I had grown up like not drinking, not going to parties or anything. So I moved in with my friends, and we had a lot of parties at that house. And jobs that were like I took acting classes with different people and, tried to like get agents and go on auditions. A lot of it was really shady. And so,
did you come across a lot of shady characters then? Because I like classic Hollywood shit, basically, right? Yeah.
Yes. Because you're like, oh, I'm here. This is awesome. Like, this looks like an opportunity. And then you get there. And, I was also naive then too. So you'd go to like an agent thing and there'd be like a couple creepy dudes in the room who wanted you to like read some like overly sexual things or do some weird things. You'd be like, that doesn't seem like what this should be. Or roles that were just like, you're hoping that no one ever sees it. So there was a lot of things like that. And I was getting, taking whatever jobs I could get that were able to like have an income as well, that were just so unrelated, to the point where I just woke up one morning and was like, and I don't know where it came from. I think I
Did,
had a
did,
friend who like did my makeup.
mm-hmm.
Um, and before that, I'd had like headshots done like twice. And
Did you do any cringe B list
yes,
movies
I
or
did.
anything that you're embarrassed of? Like, is that the
Yeah.
answer? Right. Okay. Okay. Just
Like
wanted to
really,
make
really
that clear for the
cringe.
record.
But like, don't want to put it out there too much because someone will find it and then I'll be hiding for a long time.
It's like the stuff that was on Cinemax at like 2 a.m. Like that
Like,
stuff.
probably didn't even make it there, but that level,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So, like, I had gotten headshots a few times that, you pay a ton of money for that.
Yeah.
And it's like bundled in. You pay like $400 for your hair and makeup. And every time I would look in the mirror afterwards and just feel so ugly.
Mm.
And as a girl or a boy, when you're like having this thing like, oh, I'm going to get my hair and makeup done, I'm going to look like the best me, I'm going to look like a movie star. And then it happens and you feel like you look terrible, like the worst version of you. It kind of makes you feel like, oh, I don't really have the potential to be beautiful.
Mm.
So I had a friend who had gone to like a makeup school but didn't do makeup for a living. She just liked to do it for fun. And she did my eye makeup for us to like go to a party one night. And I just remember looking in the mirror and being like, wow, that's what makeup can do. Can make you
Yeah.
feel beautiful and like change how your face looks and do these wonderful things for you. So not that long after that, I woke up one morning. I was kind of like in a rut. It's like, this isn't going anywhere. This is so much effort and so much
Were
embarrassment.
you thinking about moving back home at this point too? Like, was
No, I had LA was like my home. I had
mm,
all my friends there, but I've gone through a lot of times of like having zero money. So you're just
for
like
sure
have jobs that you hate, and then
couch
that
surfing, maybe at friends at points,
I
right?
had like lived at
Uh,
different people's families' house where like I paid rent, and sometimes I lived at people's houses where they didn't charge me rent. But
yeah.
it's so expensive. It's like I was used to the feeling of when I would scan my credit card to buy a pack of cigarettes, like holding my breath that it was going to get declined because it
That's just for
happened
a
so
pack
many
of
times.
cigarettes. Damn.
Yeah,
Right.
because
It
it would
was like
happen
that
so
rough.
many times. Or like to
Yeah.
fill your gas tank, you'd be like,
Yeah.
as they're ringing it, like, are they going to say okay? And then you're like, oh, yeah, of course I had the money. Or having like a couple different cards where you're like, can you try this one? And it's like a $4 purchase. So I
That's
had
awesome.
that for so long
Mm.
and just woke up one day and was like, makeup. Like, okay, what's the step for that? I got to go to a class. So my mom helped me, luckily, and I like signed up for this class at Mud. And it kind of like snowballed from there really quickly.
Hmm.
So it was like the sign that I was on the right path.
Yeah. How do people know that they're on the right path, Tara? Like, you know what I mean?
I
Like,
mean, I don't think it always works out that way, unfortunately. So I think that if you're working towards something that's going to make you happy, like it's something that you love,
hmm,
then it's always worth fighting for. You know, something that
yeah,
you have a talent at. That's an important part of it, I think,
yeah.
is like you are good at this thing and you're willing to put the time in to sharpen your skills and become great at it and make the sacrifices that it takes to put everything into that, because you you can't really, if you want to work in the entertainment industry, a lot of that includes like waking up every morning and like looking up every single job you possibly could in your field, especially when you work in, any fields that are like creative. A lot of those jobs you could be at the top of an industry, but each job is one job. You know what I mean? Like, even like a big actor, it's like they may be the star of a huge movie, but when that movie ends, they then have to go get another movie. It's not
In
like,
order to stay in that top spot, basically, right?
or
You
in
know?
order to even keep working.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
nothing is just keeps going unless you keep like fighting really hard for it.
Yeah.
And so it has to be something that you're so passionate about that it's worth that to you. Because it's much easier to go, not super easy, but it's a lot easier to go and get like a job that sustains you,
Hmm.
and you don't have to fight for it every day that you go in and you like clock in and you clock out and you make enough money to survive. And maybe you don't love it, but it's steady, and there's not like 1,000 people trying to steal your job every day. It's just like a calm road, and you can like climb up and make more and get raises and whatever. But in this field, it doesn't work like that.
For sure.
Usually,
Or it's
sometimes
an
you get lucky
exaggeration.
breaks and you like, you know, like I booked the job that I booked and I ended up working on that job for 6 years, but that is so rare in this industry. People don't usually have a job for 6 years. So it's like,
So let's go there. I think that'd be
yeah.
an interesting thing to dive into. So like you had all this like, is my credit card gonna work for these cigarettes? Like, you made it through all those moments and the sleeping at your friends' places and that type of stuff. Now, let's talk about when that opportunity came, where you got the job to work right for
Yeah.
Gaga. Like, how did that come about, and how? I always love asking these questions because I think it's just like pretty inspiring. Usually I'm finding people are in a pretty tough spot before they like get that break. A lot of people that are on the podcast were going to like walk away, before their big break came. So talk to us like about where your headspace was just prior to getting that job with Lady Gaga.
I was working on a TV show. It was an HGTV show called
Mm-hmm.
Outdoor Room. So like I was the makeup artist on that. So I did makeup and I was the stylist. So I was like had the wardrobe in my car. And I also, it wasn't like a huge paycheck. So I would also every morning look for all jobs I could get. And I had my mentor who works at Smashbox Studios in cosmetics, who would book me for whatever jobs she had, like fashion shows and photo shoots and shoots at Smashbox Studios and all these different things. But they weren't like every day. So I did this show from early morning till afternoon every day, Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends and nights, I would take these other makeup jobs to do like special events and photo shoots and stuff like that. And so at the time, I had just gotten my opportunity, like Fashion Week was coming in LA. It was like about to happen. So I was about to do my lead of my first Fashion Week show. And so that was like a really big deal. It was really exciting. And I got called to assist on the Bad Romance music video. And so at the time, that wasn't like that big, you know? It was like I'm getting called to like be someone's assistant.
Right.
And Lady Gaga wasn't like the Lady Gaga she is today. So it was going to fall on like a couple day chunk that was going to then have me not at my job, my day job, and my fashion show. And so I like called my friend who's a makeup artist and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I have this offer, but I have these other things, these commitments. Like,
You were almost like not gonna go, basically,
yeah,
right?
because like
Right.
I committed to these other things first. And like, I don't want to be, these are
And
people
again,
who've
it's like
given
an
me
assistant to an
opportunities.
assistant. It's not. It
Yeah.
didn't seem like an incredible opportunity, like at the time. Right.
Yeah. And
Right.
like, these people are like people who are giving me my first opportunity
Yeah.
at these great things. And the people who've like given me so many opportunities. I don't want to blow that off and mess that up for something that is like a one-off
100%.
I don't
Yeah.
know. So I called my friend and she was like, you have to do this. I'm like, she helped me. She was like, I'm going to cover for you for those. And like, you need to do it. So once she said that, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I did the video. I still to this day feel bad about the fashion show. Um, and then for the next like week and a half or 2 weeks, every morning or the night before, I'd get a call to go and assist for a TV show or something that Gaga was doing in LA. But I had
Being the assistant to the assistant, same deal, right?
being
Like for the
assistant
other
to
thing?
her makeup artist.
Right, right.
So just assisting her makeup artist. And I'm the makeup artist and wardrobe for all of 3 stars on this TV show. And I have all the clothes in my car. And so I'm like, I can't. So the first day I called in sick and I went and assisted. And I think it was like maybe the Ellen show. I don't know. There was a bunch of them and they were all in the same like Ellen, Jay Leno, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And then the next day there was another one. And so I think I might have called in sick again. The same friend filled in for me. My friend Adrienne, she's amazing. And so by like the third day, I was like, I can't, it's going to be obvious. I'm not like, whoops, I'm sick. And so I told the host, he was like, we're really close, this guy, Jamie Dury. I was like, okay, look, here's what's really happening. He was also an executive producer on the show. And so I knew if I came clean to him, like there was a chance I could just get fired right then and there. Like,
Yeah.
but I also knew it was the right thing to do. And so I was like, here's what's happening. Like, I'm getting called to all these like Lady Gaga jobs and I'm not really sick, but Adrienne can cover for me. And
And was
so
she like? I know you said at the time you did Bad Romance, like she wasn't like the Gaga that we know now, but like was she quickly becoming that? Right, as you
not
were.
yet, because
Not yet. Okay.
this was like 1 week of promo. Bad Romance hadn't come out yet. So Just Dance and Poker Face were out. But like
Got it.
it was
Okay.
like, she had one security person with her and there wasn't like people waiting outside hotels.
She was still riding like that, like the Just Dance record that was like massive, right?
Yeah.
Like that, right? Okay.
The Fame
Okay.
was out. So
Right.
the host was like, he's Australian. He was like, Tazzy, that's amazing. So he was super happy for me. And I was like, okay, cool. So at that point, there was like an award show, and I was told that she had requested me for a tour, but that like they told her I worked on this TV show, so I couldn't go. And so I was like, no, I would totally go. Like, that sounds awesome. And so, anyways, they told her I was available. And then it was like the next couple days of me being pulled out of my job to go do these other jobs with her. But no one told me if I was going on tour or not. And so I just was like in limbo. Like some days I'd be on set and I'd be like, hi, everyone, I'm back. And then the next day I'd be gone. And then like the day before, I think I finally got told and I was on set. We were like at this house and all of the executive producers and what people own the network were like at the craft service table. And so I thought I was in trouble. I was like, oh no, they're mad at me. And then they called me over because they never came to the set. So I was like, this is a big deal. They called me over and then they had this big like Disney princess cake for me. That was like, congratulations. I
That's
was like, this is like
amazing.
the
Wow.
best way you could
That's like
ever.
the exact opposite of what you thought was going to happen, right?
Exactly. I was like,
Yeah,
oh my
yeah.
gosh, thank you.
That's incredible.
But
And
I was
so
only being hired for like a 2 week trial period. So
to go on tour with Gaga was a 2 week trial, you're
yeah,
saying,
it was
right?
like the
Okay.
Monster Balls theater tour. And it was
So
only booked initially, I think, for like 3 months. But we ended up being gone for like a year and a half on that tour.
crazy. Where was your so like what was the first show like? Was there like a lot of nerves and stuff?
Oh my
Were
God,
you
yeah. We
Mhm.
went to Canada. So I think we were in Montreal first. I don't remember. It was somewhere that everyone spoke French. And so we were there for Thanksgiving. And I remember I was like walking around the city by myself, like trying to find somewhere to eat. And everyone spoke French. And then the first like 2 nights, Billy, who I was assisting, he was there. and he did her
This
makeup.
was the main makeup artist that you were the assistant to,
Yeah.
right?
So he
Okay.
did her makeup the first 2 nights,
Mm-hmm.
and then the third night left. And so,
Wait, what do you mean left? Like left the tour?
yeah. So he,
Oh,
like,
crazy.
he was supposed to be training me, but there wasn't really like a transition. It was just like he did the makeup, and then so then that third night, it was either the second or third night, I was like crazy nervous. And I think it might have been, no, I think I did it for the show. It happened, and I was like, phew. And then soon after, we went to like Boston, where I'm originally from. So my family was there. And I did her makeup for like a daytime thing. Like we got called to the room and we did her makeup just to like go outside. And she was so happy that she then scheduled me to go with her to the UK for like this shoot with Nick Knight to meet the Queen, and for like the UK, was it The Voice? I don't know. It's one of those. No, it's not The Voice. It's
One of the like singing
yeah,
shows in
one
the
of like
UK,
the
right? Yeah.
UK shows. It'll come to me in a second. One of the ones that we've ripped off now in the US. One
Yeah.
of those ones.
Britain's Got Talent, and then we've got America's Got Talent,
It's
right?
one of
Was it
those
that
ones,
one? Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I was suddenly like, oh, okay, I'm going to like the UK for the first time in my life, because I hadn't like traveled the world before. So I
Wow.
was like,
So this is.
I guess I'll be going there. So the whole time, like for the first little period, I was thinking, all right, we'll note down like at least you'll get to go to the UK if you get sent home tomorrow. Like it felt like a reality show, like the tension, like you might
Yeah,
go
like
home
you really.
tomorrow, but at least you went to Canada and you went to the UK.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh man, that's such a good point you're making, actually, Tara. Because like when we get great opportunities, I feel like there's a lot of like, could this really be happening? Like, is this real? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like, it's a mixture of like, do I deserve this? With like, so many people could be doing this job, right? Like we talked about that on our first call,
Yeah.
I think. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's like,
Um,
I don't think that really fades. I felt like I always had that. Like I was there for,
Even after years working with Lady Gaga, like you still had that feeling
yeah,
of
because I was
those
there for
feelings.
6 years, and, we were really close, really good friends, but it didn't like change that like disassociation, where it's like you have your little insulated world.
Yeah.
And especially when you have your little insulated world of these people that you see every day
Hmm.
that are like, they're real to you, who they are. But then in the outside world, unbeknownst to you, there's like this growth of who these people are. Like when we began, in 2009, there wouldn't be people outside the hotel. There wouldn't be, you know, people waiting outside the venue really. And this started to like change and ramp up to the point where like by 2012, I couldn't walk outside the hotel without people screaming my name. And there would be barricades
Wow.
outside the hotel with like, hundreds of people. And, I could go in a car ride a couple miles away to go somewhere, and the people would come up to me and ask me for photos and autographs. So it's like you're still in this little bubble and everything outside is changing, but like you don't see it. It's not like we're seeing tabloid magazines or we're like watching E or TMZ or seeing what this perception is that's shifting. But it's like one
That's
day
a
you wake
really
up and you're like, whoa, we're in Rio and there are like 10,000 people outside who scream every time we like move our blinds. It's just,
wow.
it's weird, but it's
That's a
cool
really
and
good
it's
point.
awesome. But it's also like, nothing prepares you for as things change. It's just like it all happens and then it just keeps happening.
And as you're saying that though, it kind of like makes sense though. It's almost like everybody on that team, you, Gaga, everybody else, like worked their asses off, I feel like,
Yeah.
right? So like when you work your asses off consistently, it's almost like, of course, this could happen, right? It's like it's just like it's like the natural progression of something, but you make an interesting point of like having like not a three-dimensional view of it, having like a one-dimensional view of that growth. I like how you said that. It's good.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
it's happening, but then because like your shows are getting extended and like this is doing really well. And
yeah,
so like
yeah,
we're adding another year and a half on. So it's like but at the same time you're only really focused on like morning until night and then the next
for
day
sure.
and the next day and then it's like all of a sudden you're like, "Oh wow, we have, three security people with us all the time." And, things are different, but they just kind of happened.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And did you notice like you don't have to name names, but like did you notice as things were like getting there on the outside, were people's egos on the team, because I assume the team was pretty big, right? Were people changing on the team? Some people?
No,
Or did
um,
everybody stay pretty grounded, like more or less
yeah, I think
throughout
that,
that,
for the most part, the only the people that like the fans really latched onto were like me, Freddie, of course Gaga, and like her choreographers and stylists and stuff. But that kind of some of that came later. They didn't, and like some security guards and stuff because they're like hunky, but and they're like a very intense fan base, so they do like find out everything about everyone.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was doing some
Yeah.
reading on the board. I'm like,
So like
wow.
suddenly I'd see like,
Yeah.
baby photos of me I haven't seen since I was a kid. And I'd be like, where did you get these? I'm like, oh, my dad's Facebook page or something. But
Yeah, it's wild.
I think because people who were there all day, every day had the same experience as me, where it's like, it, there's no time to get caught up in anything because you're so busy. So it's
Yeah, you
like,
just have your head down going basically.
because you're
So
working
even
all
though when you
day,
see,
every day. So it's like, where would you have the time to be like, oh, like and you're always
yeah,
next to someone who's now the biggest star in the world. So like you're never
got it,
thinking like,
got it.
oh, I'm super dope. You're just like, and your job as like a makeup artist or like a hair person is like to make sure that this person is always fabulous and gorgeous and constantly doing touch-ups. And so never focus is always like outward, and like if it's ever inward
For
it's
sure.
like, oh no, I did
I,
a terrible job on that. And
I, no, no, no. I have seen people switch up though on the team when they're artists or whatever, somebody on the team. Oh, because they want, you know what I'm trying to say? They want to ride the coattails. They want to be that. So it's funny. One of my first times being in LA, and I'm not really a film person.
yeah,
I'm a music person. And I remember being at like this hotel called the Chateau
yeah, we
Marmont,
used to stay there a
and
lot.
exactly. So I was meeting like a up and coming musician there, and he happened to be at the table. I didn't know this guy with two people, and a guy and a girl. And like after an hour at the table, the girl leaves, and I'm like new to LA, and I'm like, man, it must be so hard for celebrities in LA with the paparazzi always, bothering them and flashing cameras and stuff. And he's like, yeah, my sister just left the table. She deals with that all the time. And I didn't recognize her as a celebrity. Turned out it was Keira Knightley, the
Oh,
actress. Yeah, but what the funny thing is like he was mad at me for not
who
knowing
she
who she
was.
was. Yeah, he like legitimately was like, "Did you grow up under a rock?" Like he was like mad about it. And I'm just thinking that because it's like, well, maybe it's because it's family or whatever. But there are people whose egos get big just being around, a
I
successful
think
artist.
with
So
us it almost had like the opposite effect in a way, because suddenly you have, if you go on social media, and we also had, she created this app called littlemonsters.com. So we were encouraged to like interact with the fans on a daily basis in these chat rooms and like post on there. And we like had people we'd send our things to post when we didn't have time. So it was like
Yeah.
just for fans. Sorry, this turns off. If anything, it made it so that like any work that you did, so like let's say we did her hair and makeup for her to walk outside, or it's a touch up after the show for a meet and greet, or we go to a restaurant or a bar or a club and photos are taken of her by fans or by paparazzi like at 3 a.m. after partying and dancing. And like I always had a purse with touch up stuff in it. So no matter what time it was, I was like making sure she looked fresh and perfect.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you have all these people all over the world who are so into her and so focused. And now when they know who you are, then if you have, any time where they don't like what you did or have an opinion on it, they're extremely vocal and extremely critical. And so before when we were like, nobody knew who we were and nobody cared, like nobody had like everybody was like, oh, she's the one with the crazy wigs and makeup. But no one really
Yeah.
thought about the fact that there was people behind that. And so
Totally.
then it's like if they thought something was too crazy or they didn't like it or whatever, they were just like, oh, she's so wild. But suddenly they had like people to like aim their opinions at, like
Which was you
me and
and the rest of
Freddie.
the team, right? Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like
Wow.
if they thought her
Wow.
hair was messy or like they didn't like her eyelashes or her eyebrow shape, it's like, so it kind of gives you already have somebody who's super important, who's the only important person for you about liking what work you do every
Yeah.
hour of the day. But then you have someone who's at the level where there's the in-person, like, oh, I love this. Then there's an hour or two later, photos of it appearing on the internet from paparazzi. Okay, I still like this. And then there's like half an hour later, 3 hours, people's reactions to the photos from the paparazzi. And then that might then come down to like, you know what? I actually think I don't like what you did. So you're always like, even if you think you
So
did a great
you're always
job,
on
yeah, even if
edge.
you think
You're
like,
always on edge. Like, is this okay? Did I do okay? And like, it could backfire, and then it's very much like
yeah, because it's
this,
like everything
the roller
artistic
coaster.
is,
But
it's up to opinion. And when it comes to like doing someone's hair and makeup, it's up to like their opinion, what people think is aesthetic, what people think is beautiful. When you're
yeah,
doing really creative things, sometimes it's like you're doing it to be outrageous and creative. So like something that person liked yesterday, maybe by tomorrow when people are like, that was too weird, then you're like, oh, now we're getting in trouble for something that we all liked yesterday. But now there's like, whereas if you're doing someone's makeup for a wedding, it's like, I look gorgeous, the pictures look gorgeous, congratulations. It's not like
yeah, yeah.
9 years
Because
later someone's like, that eyelash is
you guys were
misplaced.
pushing you guys were pushing the boundaries. I mean, she showed up in a meat suit for God's
Yeah.
sakes, right? At one of these award shows. Like, by the way, did you work on that? The meat suit show?
I was there, but I didn't do her makeup for that. I was
Okay.
in the hotel. But yeah, it's definitely a different level that no one can ever be prepared for. It's like you're used to
Yeah.
doing makeup, you do this, you do that, and then suddenly you're like,
You're not so scrutinized, basically. Like, it's hard being that scrutinized. It's almost like usually the people around the artist aren't as scrutinized as the artist themselves. But in your case, I think with the fans being so rabid, which isn't always the case. Like, Lady Gaga's got some like diehard
yeah,
fans.
and they're
Like,
amazing.
yeah,
Like they still give me so
yeah,
much love and so much support. But I think in the case of asking like whether or not the people who like contribute to her creativity, egos could get out of hand, I think that's what kind of keeps you like, because you're so hyper focused every moment on like doing better than you did before. that you don't even have time to like process what's happening, because you're like, okay, I have to do another makeup in like an hour. And what it's like, you're always just looking
Yeah. Yeah,
forward
that's real.
and trying to get things done and trying to be the best you could be because you're working for the best. So it's like everything is the most important thing ever. If you have like something you need to bring up that's like a business thing and you're like looking for a
Yeah.
good time, there's never a good time, because like this is for the president and this is for the
Yeah.
queen and then this one's for, it's like everything with her is literally going to be like for someone else the biggest day of the world.
So so what did that feel like for you? Like meaning like were there conversations or discussions that you wanted to have to like, hey, maybe we should adjust this or change something? And it sounds like you're saying you were hesitant to like, when is the right time to have those
I think you
conversations,
just,
right?
it's more like if like an assistant or somebody who's working for her or something like needs to ask like a business question or something like that, you just learn that like if anyone needs to like get time in, just do your thing because everything is always going to be the most tantamount moment that's ever happened, and it's just going to keep getting there, keep growing and growing.
Right.
Like tomorrow she'll be given like the key to the city of Taipei. Like everything is,
So
nothing's
like
not important.
basically it's like, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. If you ask at the wrong time, then just
Or
ask for
just like
forgiveness.
figure out, you
Right.
learn to like be on the same vibrations as the people around you and work
Yeah.
together like in harmony, where you're not having to like verbalize things. Like you learn when to verbalize things and when to just read what to do. So when people ask me like,
For sure.
oh, how did you guys like formulate different looks or talk about them, most of the time we just like enter the room together and start, and it just comes together. There's not, I very much admire people who like have face charts where it's like, you know, a loose drawing of like a face shape, and then they have like the colors on it of what they're going to do mapped out, and they have like 10 options for someone to choose from. That just does not happen in the kind of work that I did. Like that does not come into play.
You guys were really spontaneous
We
together, you and
had to
Gaga.
be
You'd be
like
like,
all three of
right.
us and
Okay.
Freddie, because it's like,
Or Freddie, yeah.
unless you're doing something that's coming up that you're planning for a music video shoot like months ahead. But even then, it's like everything up until then is jam packed all day, every day, where there's hardly time. Like you don't get tons of creative meetings about that thing. So it's like you just have to
So
always
let
have ideas, because you're going to do maybe 10 looks in a day sometimes. And you just have to like, you're not sitting there like plotting. It's just off the top of your
No, that's
head.
really cool. I would have never expected that answer, honestly, because I'm like, this is like the biggest artist in the world and everything's going to be mapped out. And so it's interesting that that's actually not the way you guys did it.
Yeah,
That's
we'd have
interesting.
like, if something was coming
Um,
up, she might say like a general, we all spent so much time together. So that did help. So we'd, you know, let's say we're like watching a movie, like a TV show, and we get inspired to like, oh, I love that color of those drapes. And then that leads us into like, wouldn't it be cool if you had this and that? And then Freddie's like, ooh, I would love it if I could create this wig that was like this fantasy. And then from that, I get an idea for like, ooh, and then what if you looked like this? And then she like comes up with some insane, awesome idea for like this flying piano thing. And then that's the idea. So it's not like something drawn out and like a proposal. It's like us all being like, ooh, and then what if you're a fairy and you're flying and there's sparkle, like things that sound maybe to someone else like, you
yeah.
can't do that. That's crazy. But you have someone that you're working for who, like, when you say things that sound insane, they're like, yes, we're doing that. And then you show up and
I
there's
love
like a
that.
flying piano and you're like, yeah, that's what I thought.
I love that. I love that. So let's cap this part of the interview with this, because
Yeah.
just to cap it, you were like, is my credit card gonna work? Now you're doing all these, the queen, the this, the president, the that, the that. What was like the most surreal moment for you, right? Going from those rough times to like some, let's like say like your biggest highlight on the 6-year journey that you had with Gaga. Like, what would that most surreal moment be?
Gosh, I don't, it's like parts of it are like a blur. And then, I mean, it's a long time. 6 years is a long time, especially
For
when
sure.
you're
Yeah.
on a tour.
For me, it was like, let me just tell you, like, I came out from Detroit to work in the music business. I didn't know one single person. I interned at Interscope. I did this. And then like a few years into that, I signed a huge record deal to Def Jam for like my very first client I was managing. And that was like a, whoa, like, oh, all that hard work. I had my head down, that type of, so that was kind of a surreal moment being a kid from Detroit,
Yeah.
doing that. So like something like that. And that took a few years or 4 years of me, being on my journey. Is there that like a moment like
Okay,
that?
I would say, I mean, I have a lot of them, but I would say like
It's-
going to do like the first or second movie with Robert Rodriguez. Was it okay? Maybe it was the first
yeah.
one when we did Machete Kills, and like we were doing a movie with Robert Rodriguez, and we're like at his whole compound, and we're like in a trailer sitting there like creating a character for his movie, and he's just like, you guys do whatever you want, and we're like working.
And this was like, so it was I just want to get through. So it was you, Gaga,
And
and Robert
Freddie
Rodriguez, just
and
and Freddie,
Brandon,
right?
who's the stylist, and like all three of us, me, Freddie, and Brandon, were like, we like started. I mean, Freddie had done stuff before, but we're like kind of like coming
Yeah.
from the same place, like, so we're like, he's like, yeah, create your own character, and let us do that twice, but. And so we're in this trailer, and then, Danny Trejo comes in and like sits down. He's like gonna get like a big fake tattoo put on for the movie, and he's just like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
Lady Gaga, I fucking love you. You're so cool." And he's like the nicest guy ever.
Awesome.
And he's just like sitting in the chair next to us, like while I'm doing her makeup, and I'm like, "This is awesome." Like Robert Rodriguez is like popping his head in, like, "Hi guys." And he's like showing us a
That was
compound, like all his collectibles and stuff, and we're just like, yeah, this is awesome.
that's pretty trippy from like, the couch surfing days and stuff. Yeah. 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 That's crazy. But like you said, there's a lot of those moments. I mean,
Yeah,
on the journey. But
yeah, there's a lot of them, where like I was raised with James Taylor. Like my mom sang me James Taylor when I was in her stomach when she was pregnant. So like I love James Taylor. Like if I can't sleep, I'll put on James Taylor or Cat Stevens. That's like my music that calms me. So we did this.
yeah.
It was like a tribute to Carole King, and they
Mm-hmm.
had,
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, was that like Staples or Nokia or something? So like there was a lot of performers, and so like the backstage rooms were like, we didn't do the glam in there. It's just like a curtain with like a curtain dividing, with rods, and like each
Yeah.
little curtain, they're not big. It's like a cubicle. They have like a paper sign that says their name on it. And so right next to ours, it was like James Taylor. And I was like, ah! And he like came out of his little curtain. And I was like, ah! It's people like that like,
So fun.
we'd meet a lot of like new celebrities. People would come and wait in line and like wait outside the dressing room to meet her and stuff. But people like that, I would be like geeking out over.
That makes sense. That had a real
It's like
impact
people from your
in your life.
childhood, just like
Um,
it hits different than like
yeah,
new stars where you're like,
totally.
oh yeah.
I know you. All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there was a lot of, we didn't touch on this yet, but I think it's important because this is kind of a mental health
Yeah.
meets entertainment platform, right? So there's a lot of so much stress, I imagine, keeping this like gargantuan ship going, right? Like how it's so much pressure. Can you talk us through how you guys as the inner core team of, like you, Freddie, Gaga, like there was like, sounds like
Yeah.
only a handful, right? Of like the inner core team. Like how did you guys talk that through with each other? Like, would you do like little, like, guys, this is really stressful. Would there be like room to have an open dialogue about when people were stressed and
You mean like
whatnot?
amongst
Or did you
ourselves?
not feel like it was okay? Yeah. Like, like, would you and Freddie get together? Like, man, I'm like losing it. This is so much to keep on top of. Like the stress I think it's no secret that would be very
Yeah, I
stressful to
think
keep
that if you
going.
are in a situation like that or in a job like that where you're remote, being remote, like to a lot of people, they think like, well, you still keep in touch. Like it's easy. You have cell phones. But once you start doing like international tours, it's just hard because the time zones, you can be for a couple months on a completely opposite time zone than everyone else. So like
Yeah.
when it's midnight for you, it's noon for them, like that kind of an extreme. And so when you're already exhausted and you're already working early mornings until late night, and you don't have text messages because you can't just like text people internationally. So it's like you would have to like have a FaceTime or, write an email or something. And it's easy to kind of like not talk to people for a couple months. It's hard to like find the time to like get home when you're exhausted and just want to like take a shower and, zone out and fall asleep to like have a FaceTime conversation with somebody when it's like in the middle of the night for them. So, or in the middle of the day for them, maybe. So you can very easily feel very alone because you're isolated from everyone that you know. So having like
Yeah.
at least one person or preferably more that are like people that you work with who are traveling with you, who you're close to, that you can like talk to about things, confide in, like
Confide in,
share,
basically.
spend
Right.
time with if you do have any time to like even just like sit in your hotel rooms together. And I was lucky enough to have that. So like I had a few people like that on the road with me who were in the core group. So they stayed in the same hotels. They were like on the same schedules as me, that I was able to like share what I was feeling with and vice versa. And if I didn't have that, it would be impossible. I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah. Okay.
Because no one
So
else
everybody
understands you
on
either. So
that
like
core
even people at
team.
home, if you do talk to them, it's hard to even
Yeah.
like, to other people, it's like, oh my gosh, you're so lucky. You're like staying in a 5-star hotel. Poor you. It's hard to even like convey
True.
anything that you're feeling or experiencing, even like the exciting things you're experiencing. People get over them.
Why the exciting? Why the exciting
Because
things is that hard to
after
express?
the first couple, it's like people get over it. It's like they don't want it. They don't want you calling them every day and being like, listen to this amazing thing that's happening to me. It gets like almost like you're rubbing it in everyone else's face. So, I mean, unless it's like your parents. It's like your parents are going to be
Right.
excited
Right. Right.
if something amazing happens to you 10 times a day. But even then, you don't have the time or energy to be like, you can't even like clock it. Like, oh my gosh, I just had
Yeah.
10 amazing things happen today. You don't even have time to process it. Never mind, like, tell someone else, unless they're there. And then you're like, hey, that was cool.
For
Okay,
sure.
let's carry on. So, mentally and
Yeah. For
emotionally,
sure.
it's like you have to have someone who's experiencing something similar to even like sit in silence with.
Let's go to when this like wild ride, the 6-year ride, was coming to an end, and let's go through those emotions that you were feeling, where it started to get hard, and you're like gonna basically break
Yeah.
open. We talked about that before.
All right. So for
Let's go
me,
there.
it for a couple years into the tour, I think I before we went to like South Africa and India, we all got like a ton of immunizations in one day. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Uh, they don't really know, but we all got like kind of sick from them. And on the whole tour, whenever someone would get sick, we would all get sick. But like I wouldn't get sick, so I would like have all these little like air purifiers in my bunk, and like, I would make sure I wouldn't get sick. So this was the first time that I had like gotten sick on tour. So I was kind of like, oh, okay, like something finally got me. And then I just seems like I couldn't get over it. I was still working every day. So it's like I would push through it.
But what were some of the symptoms? What were some of the symptoms? Headache, like just
Um,
lethargic, not
really
having a lot of
nauseous,
energy, you know.
migraines,
Hmm.
more exhausted than usual. Like
Hmm.
you find it normal to like be exhausted, but this was like different. I suddenly
Hmm.
couldn't sleep anymore. So like I would fall asleep maybe at like 10:30 if I could get in bed by then, but then I'd wake up at 11 and then I'd be up the entire night until I went to work. So I was getting like a half an hour of sleep every night, but I'd be
Damn.
exhausted, but I couldn't fall asleep. And I would fall.
Wait, was this happening to Gaga as well? Because
No,
you
this
said the
was just
team,
me.
so or was
I'm
it
just saying,
just
like,
Freddie
everyone
and
is like
just? Oh,
exhausted. So you're not like, I'm exhausted because everyone's like,
sure.
we're all exhausted. Like,
Because a minute ago you said that you got some immunizations and some that, and
it
like
was
the
right
team
then that
kind
we
of
all felt
right
like crap
started
for like
to.
a day or two because we took these like anti
Okay,
malaria pills. They were like, you're going to feel
right.
sick. So, like, everybody was like vomiting and headaches and stuff like that. Other people had other symptoms I won't go into. And then it
Sure,
was like
sure, sure.
I just couldn't pull out of it. I had like a cold and like was swelling, like my hands were
Got it.
swelling.
It for
Yeah,
you. It
like I had
lingered.
weird, like
Yeah, it lingered.
swollen
Okay.
sausage fingers and feet. I was like, what's happening? Maybe it's from the plane. And
Wow.
then I
Wow.
went home for like a day or two because we had like a day off for Thanksgiving. And I ended up in the emergency room because I couldn't breathe. So I thought I had anaphylactic shock. And then I just left. This
What
was in
state was this
Missouri.
in?
So I
What
came home
city?
to my parents'
In
house
Missouri. Right.
for like a night.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up in the emergency room and then I had to leave to go back on tour. So I was just like, whatever. I had an allergic reaction to something or
Wow.
whatever. So after that, it's like I was having symptoms like that. And then Gaga was like, I think you have lupus. My aunt had lupus and she died of it. So she took me to a lupus
Whoa.
doctor. At this point, it was like everything was increasing. Like I was having trouble breathing. I was having like this weird swelling in my legs and my hands and my feet. And like my extremities were like turning colors. But I was still doing my regular job. So I was trying to like hide it. And there'd been a couple times before that where like we were all in the dressing room, like me and Freddie and my friend Brandon, who's a stylist. And we'd be like talking and laughing, and then all of a sudden I would just like fell over. Like it was like I had like a moment of like a blackout that made me pass out.
That's
But
really scary.
you're in the middle of
Yeah.
like busy some like the president's out there and like she's about to come back in. So I just like one of the times I like fell on a glass table, but I didn't break it. And so I immediately like put everything back and like got
Wow.
up before everyone came back in. So it was like a couple times with those. The only one who knew what was happening was Freddie because, he was like worried about me. And I was like, it's fine. Like I have tall shoes on. It's probably like I lost my balance. So all of these things kind of like accumulating in me going to this doctor.
Were you were
Yeah.
wanting to just keep, like shove this thing down and keep
Yeah. It was
doing
like,
what you've
whatever.
been
It's just
doing,
like we're all
basically. I
just
just want to,
tired or something. And I'm not sleeping. And maybe I had too much Red Bull or something. I don't know. So it was like, whatever. Like, just forget it. So I went to this
wow.
doctor and she said I had lupus. And so I was like, okay, well, what does that even mean? Like, what do I do? How does that help what's happening to me right now? Like, I just don't want to be like
Hmm.
swollen like
Yeah.
a sausage and feel like my skin's bursting and like I can't breathe. So she gave me like some meds and then we went on the road. We're gone. So I was like taking them, some of like the swelling went down and just like carried on my life. And then we were in South Africa and we went on this amazing safari. It was like the raddest thing ever. God knew it was like a dream of mine. So we did like this awesome safari. And then on the way back, we were like in this van and I could just like, it might have been like the plane and then a van. It was like something was up with me, meant like with my brain. I was having like a migraine and my migraines get really bad. So if other things come along with it, I'm like, oh, it's just the migraine. So I was like having weird like
Right.
audio hallucination things.
But you
Yeah.
wrote this off as a
So I was
migraine,
just like, I
nothing to
gotta get
worry
back to the
about. Yeah.
hotel and like take a nap. So I
Hmm.
got to the hotel and like was at the front desk and one of our security guys, who's really sweet and perceptive, was like, are like, do you know where you're going? Like, do you know how to? And I like couldn't verbalize. Like I knew what I needed to say, but I couldn't make the words come out. And I knew where my room was and I knew where my key was, but I couldn't put the thoughts together. It was the weirdest thing. And so I like looked at him.
I had a near death experience, dude, where my brain wanted to say like blue, and I said like car. I know that feeling where it's like you thought your plane was going to
Yeah.
take off this way, and then it took
I
off
like
that way.
couldn't
Is that was the feeling,
form
right?
like
It's trippy.
the neurons
Yeah.
like couldn't form the connections in my brain. And so I like just looked at him and like kind of my eyes welled up. I like started crying. And so he was like, okay, I got it. And he like talked to the concierge, got a key, walked me in my room, like got me in. And then that night, I don't know if I was sleeping or if I was hallucinating, but like I saw all the jungle animals in my room all night. But I also wrote that off to like,
Wow.
it was a dream, but I'm seeing them, but like I have a migraine, whatever. So the next day we had a show and I was in her room getting her ready to go to the venue and there was a like a medic person there for her, like an IV or something. And so I like quietly pulled him aside and was like, hi, when the show starts, will you come and find me? And they were like, sure. They didn't like ask any follow-up questions. And so when the show started, they came to get me. I got her ready at the hotel, went to the venue, got her ready for the stage, sent her to stage. I didn't want her to worry. And then as soon as I like left the glam table, it was like I knew mentally that like I did what I needed to do or something. And I guess I like collapsed. I don't remember. The medic came and my friends Swanson and Wiggins, who were like filming us for a documentary, were in the dressing room. So luckily they were there. And I had like a fever of like, I don't know, I had a fever of like 103 or something crazy. Something crazy. It might have been higher than that. And so they called an ambulance. And I just was like really focused on like, nobody tell her that like this is happening because it's gonna like mess up the whole performance. So they took me to the hospital, the ER, and like Terry, who was her trainer, came with me. She was like super sweet, and I don't really remember the first night. She came after the show, but they somehow got like a neurologist who wasn't there to come in, and he was like Nelson Mandela's neurologist, and they did a spinal tap. Like they knew enough to do a spinal tap just from my symptoms, and said I had, it was either like encephalitis or meningitis. Like my brain was swollen. Yeah. And so
Swelling. Yeah.
they,
Yeah.
I told them
It's
that
really
I'd
scary.
been diagnosed with lupus. And so they were like, okay, well, maybe the lupus went to your brain because like lupus can affect all types of your body. But either way, I had to stay for 3 days on like a steroid. You know, I had to like be on an IV of meds. But luckily, there was like 3 days in between the shows. There was like one in Johannesburg and one in
Yeah.
Cape Town. And so I was like just focused on like, as long as I can make it to the next city by the next show, then like, okay, do whatever you need to do. So like two of my friends who were producers on her album stayed in the hospital with me. Like they stayed back and like took turns in the hospital, like sitting by my bed. And then we flew together, the three of us, to the next city. And I was in the dressing room there. I remember Charlize Theron came back there. I was like on the couch, like in some sort of like vegetative state, like sitting next to her. Like, and then we like flew that night to Russia on like our little tour plane. And my head, the whole flight, I was like, I thought my head was going to explode. I found out later, like if you have a spinal tap, you're like not supposed to get on a plane. And I got on like 2 flights. One of them was long. So that's why my head, because it's like the actual pressure from like tapping your spinal fluid. You're not supposed to like be in a pressurized cabin. So I just thought I had a migraine.
The doctors failed to tell you that you shouldn't be flying.
If you're
like
working
on the verge
for
of
like
death.
a superstar, it changes all of the rules.
Who changed?
It
who
happens.
says that?
I'm
though?
telling
you
you
say
from
that?
life experience. It's like people.
Like you throw everything to the side. This is just like, you speaking.
They could
you
have a doctor there, and they're like, "Oh, well, you have to go to this Lady Gaga," and they're like, "Yeah, that's cool." Like nobody told me, or if they did tell me I shouldn't get on a plane, I wouldn't have heard it because I was like, my brain was swollen. So you know what? In their defense, maybe they did tell me. I was like,
okay, right. I feel like you might have blocked it out, because I feel like when we spoke for the first time, we touched on, it's in everybody's head to not leave this thing, because you've grown close to everybody on the team, right? So like there's this like allegiance, like we're all doing this together, but then there's the feeling of also, shit, I don't want to get replaced too. Like that's got to play into it. Everybody could feel that way, because then things just carry forward and it's like, shit. So both of those things, it's not enabling you to make healthy decisions.
And you feel like everything
you're not making
doing
healthy
is like
choices.
The most important thing in the world. It's like everything else can wait and is like for another time.
Right. Because we talked about it, like the entertainment business. I feel like, especially when you're at that level,
every day
life
is life or death. It's like your
everything happening is life or death.
You should come to this like wedding or this thing. You're like, no, I can't. Like, I can't do anything. This is like maybe next time. Like, what are you talking about? Like, and every time they like want to schedule something, you're like, no, I have like the inauguration. We're going to Elton John. It's like everything is like something so major that you really have to have people in your life who are like, okay, I'll let you have this round and not give you any shit.
For sure. And you're right. You alluded to this earlier, but I really think it needs to be like said again. When people are in these glamorous positions and doing these things, I feel like pain can get diminished. Humanity can get squeezed out, It's like, no, dude, you're still a human being. Like, it's like, we got to remember that. I mean,
you are, but the truth is, it's like, if you really want that thing, you have to be the person who's like not human, because there's like,
that's what
the star can have like, this is just for this isn't like a particular star. This is just what I've seen and experienced. It's like the star can have a limited amount of like feelings and human needs, limited even, because like with the schedule and the demands and the things they have to do, it's like you can't get sick, you can have a cold and like cancel a show.
Didn't she have an album called Fame Monster? Like Fame Monster or something.
So
that
it's like
literally
that
is what you're saying right now. Like fame
and
can be a monster.
Who's like, helping to make that happen. It's like you can you it's and it's not like anyone's saying that in a mean way. It's just how it goes. It's like everyone who is there to make this happen, if all of them had voicing feelings and problems and like bringing all of that to the table, it'd be like you wouldn't get anything done. So it's
Nothing would
like
get done.
you have
Yeah,
to know
yeah,
how
yeah.
to like come into the space not really as a human. It's like you have humanity, but you
But
don't
like
bring
maybe,
your
but
human
I would,
problems
I
or
would, I
feelings
would
or
say this
issues
though.
or moods or how your feelings got hurt a billion times before. You don't bring that into the room because it's not helpful.
But it's got to get addressed somewhere, or it's going to eat away at you. If you're not going to address it in a wider way, then like you need to be
I'm not saying that
addressing
this
this
is
shit
like
someplace.
great that that's the way it works.
Right.
I'm just saying it.
No, I'm almost speaking to
Yeah.
like the former version of you that went through a lot of shit and a lot of pain. Like I wish that you would have slowed down a bit and take it, because like as you're sharing the story, I'm like, man, you
Yeah.
you kind of went through the ringer
But
just
I honestly
doing
like,
this deal.
people have asked me like, would I do that job again or a job like it? And I know because I have so many friends who have done similar jobs with like other people who are like in a similar situation. It's not different. It's like you have to be prepared mentally and physically to completely immerse yourself in someone's career and you know what I mean? You have to like not you have to be okay with that and ready for that and excited about that. And I was. That's why it was like you if you can give your all to somebody, you can make amazing things. But if you can only give like a couple handfuls, it's not the same. I'm not saying like that this is all completely sane or like ideal, but if you're working with someone who's like working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on a million projects, you're not going to last if you're not like 1,000,000% devoted to like making all of that happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't see doing, even if I went back and
It's
did
the
it again,
nature.
I couldn't have like
It's
other
the nature of
relationships.
it, Tara. Like it's the nature of what you're saying. I
Yeah.
feel like is probably true. Like it's the nature of it. Like you just got to be all in it. You can't be 1 foot in and 1 foot out. But there should at least be some awareness of your own mental health, or you're gonna burn out, and it's like not gonna last anyways.
Yeah.
So you should like. I'm just saying for
Yeah.
other people that might find themselves in this, who might have not crashed from just pushing themselves to that level. I think that there's got to be a way to, even if you're carving out 10% or something, just to like go take a walk, or like just call a friend or go seek therapy or something. Just do something, because
Yeah.
otherwise you're
Some
going to
people,
crash and burn
like
anyways, I feel like.
do exercise, like go for runs every morning on the road or meditate or whatever. I just found like with my particular situation, I didn't have any like time to do anything. But you can also like enter a situation setting your own boundaries. There's different ways to do things,
I mean,
and not everything has to be like
yeah, like
completely involved. I think I might just be the kind of person who like if I do something, I'm like all the way in.
I think this might be a Tara thing. I do, and I'm like thinking to myself, like looking back on this though, I
Yeah.
guess because we learn from experiences where we fall on our face, like that's how we learn the best. So like, could you have taken a breath? Could you have spoken to somebody else? Could you have,
Yeah.
I'm not saying like leave, but just do something differently that you wouldn't have
Yeah.
almost
But
died, because like you
here's
legit
the
almost
crazy thing though.
died, right?
It's like,
So it's
yeah,
like,
I like
yeah.
almost died and I ended
Hmm.
up when I left, it was because I was like about to go to the emergency room again. We'd been traveling with like hyperbaric oxygen chamber for me. like doing anything possible to keep me on the road. And so when I finally did leave, it was like, all right, like I'm going to be dead if we don't go. It's like we finally were like, okay, I think we have to do this, even though like neither of us wanted to. But I know this is going to sound crazy. When I look back at it and go like, okay, like me now, would I do any of that differently? I don't think I would. Because look at like what we created. You know, I do think that like art and things that inspire people are, you know, the things that like stay around the world for the longest and make the biggest impact. And the kind of like messages I get from fans to this day are so like intense in a great way, you know, about like how my work in some way changed their life, things that I never thought were possible from doing makeup. So it's like
Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything different I would do, just because
I
till
think
the very end of my career with her, I got to do things that I didn't get to do. You know what I mean? It's like jam packed to the very end, you know? And it was all completely awesome. It's like the
for
last
sure.
year
Yeah.
I did like, she hosted and musical guest SNL, collaborated with Jeff Koons. I collaborated with Robert Wilson, and my art was in the Louvre. I mean, we did so many like amazing, like I had like 2 major magazine covers, so many things just in that last year alone that I wouldn't give up if I had left a year earlier. So I think it's worth it. It just it just depends, you know. But I think that's why you kind of have to like be realistic with yourself and kind of go, what do I want?
You, it was the flip of a coin, though. I feel like you could have also died during that time and not seen the Louvre
Yeah,
and seen these other things
I'm
too. So
not
it's
saying
like,
that's what
you know,
everyone should do, but I
but
am saying be realistic. I personally don't think it's realistic to think like if you when I watch like a show or news or whatever and I see like these people who are crazy successful, most of them are like by themselves. You know, like the majority of people who have like nose to the grindstone just like every day, all they have
yeah, for
is,
sure.
not
I
saying
think
it's
there's a lot of
not
that.
amazing, but like they have their career and their work, and that's what they've put everything into. And so I think, and that was like the decision that I made at that time. It was like, this is all that matters to me is my career. So like that's what I'm gonna do. I feel differently now. I don't feel that way anymore. But at the time, that's how I felt. It was like, I want to build something amazing. And I did that. And so I think just being realistic about like your goals. Of course, you can achieve anything that you want. You can make anything possible. Anything that hasn't been done before, you can be the first one to do it. But I just think that like the amount of attention and focus and energy that we have as human beings to be incredible is boundless. But laser focusing in on one thing, you can be a superstar at that one thing.
I agree. I agree. The only sort of,
Yeah.
I guess, asterisks, if you will, to that is it for me is what I've learned working in entertainment is like if you want things to last, and what I've seen too is like you need to
Yeah.
carve out a little bit of self-care for yourself. Otherwise, I just think you're going to get there, but the
Yeah.
journey will be
Yeah.
shorter lived, I think. Does that make sense? Like if you want the journey to go a little longer, yes, make sure that you're incorporating
Yeah.
just taking care of yourself
Yeah.
by
I
how you need
definitely don't
to.
mean like
So
no self care. I think I mean more like, you know, maybe don't expect like all of the things.
yeah, because there needs to be, I think across the
Yeah.
board, I think we see sacrifice. And that's why I love doing this podcast because I've had professional athletes, same thing, right? Professional athletes sacrifice a lot. They're in the gym, they don't get to see their family. Like to do extraordinary things does require sacrifice, does require focused energy. But for those, I've also seen people that do that
Yeah.
and they go fucking crazy. Like it hurt. That's no good either. So I don't know. It's like I think if life experience can hopefully help you find
I
a sweet
do.
spot there somewhere.
And I
Do you feel what
agree.
I'm
And I don't
saying?
think it's a
Like
good
maybe
thing to
the
go
yeah.
crazy. But as a side note,
Yeah,
I
no.
do think that a lot of people
Caveat.
who have gone crazy have made amazing things that are still some of the most amazing
Yeah.
things that we have.
So
Vincent van Gogh. I mean, there's tons of historically,
yeah,
like the greatest things that we hold as the greatest art of all time. Most of those people, if they had social media accounts today, would be canceled and considered maniacs. Like, who even knows who Rembrandt really was? I'm just saying, like, allow maybe a little more criticism to yourself. Like, if I'm well liked as a human and I've created great things, like, whoa. And I'm like functioning in society, like, most of
totally.
like those old artists would be like in a cave, you know, for like 50 years, and then they'd be like, look what I carved all that time. And everyone would be like, weird. And then like 100 years later, everyone's like, this is dope. But like, you know,
That's
that's the
true.
kind of focus. They'd be
That's
like,
true.
can you
That's
imagine being
true.
like married to the guy? He's like, you're still painting that ceiling? It's been like a million years. No one's going to care. It's a ceiling. And then here we are now. Like, that's, everyone knows what that is. It's awesome.
That's very true. No, that's interesting. I wanna. I think we breezed over this,
Sorry, I'm
so
not
and I
telling
definitely think
everyone to be
it's
crazy.
important to circle back to Tara. No,
I'm
you're
not
just
giving the
yeah.
opposite message that you want, but I just needed to touch upon the fact that like allowing yourself to be whatever you are creatively, you know, it looks like a lot of different things to a lot of people. Just like allowing that in the conversation.
For sure.
Self-care, yes, but if you take 70
I
years to
just
draw a painting too, you know, maybe that's your thing.
for sure. I mean, or just what do you want? What do you want? Do you want what you're doing to be sustainable? Well, maybe just incorporate the self-care a little bit more. Just be more mindful in my opinion, cuz like I think what we're saying,
Yeah.
the overlap, Tara, and what we're saying is to do the sacrifice thing, to put your head down, like will get you there. Like almost all the time if you're doing something cool and you do those two things of like sacrifice and putting your head down, but it's just the
Okay, so I don't
sustainability
think that
piece that
that
I'm referring
level
to. Are you with me?
of
That's what I'm saying.
that speed, that level, that amount of work, I mean, at least for me, it was only sustainable for a
Yeah, for
certain
you.
amount of years until my body was like, let me
Right.
out of
That's what I'm saying.
here.
That's what I'm trying
So
to say.
but
Yes.
but
Yes.
here's the
Okay.
thing is that
So we
because
agree.
that
We agree
particular
there.
job
Yeah.
demands that, it was either you work here or you don't.
And do you think, knowing everything you know, do you think that is there another way from like what you've learned, or do you think that when you're working at that level, because I would like to believe, and that's
Yeah.
why like mental health is so important, because it's like
Yeah.
if you don't have that, like you don't really have much. Like the cliche is you could have like, you know, $100 million in the bank and
Yeah,
want to
which is
not be
what
on this
happens
earth.
all the
You know what
time.
I'm trying, like what good is it?
Like that's the thing is I wasn't unhappy. I was very happy. Just my body was like, yo, chick, let me out of here. But mentally and emotionally, I was very happy.
There
So
you
that's
go.
why I was like, I
Yeah.
don't want to stop doing this. Like, I love this. So that's where it's like any self care that I would
Got it.
need
Got it.
would have
Got
been
it.
like, I didn't really know what it was. It was like the doctors couldn't tell me, like, well, what would I need to do to get better? They were like, we don't really have a cure for this, but like, probably what you're doing isn't helping. Traveling and like working on your
Got it.
feet all the time. And I was like,
So mentally, you were
right.
like doing okay. Physically, you were
Yeah.
not doing
Because I
okay.
do thrive in
That's
like
important, right? Okay.
having something to do every second of the day, sort of a thing.
Hmm.
So, you know, they were saying like, we don't really know what to tell you if you're going to like have this kind of a lifestyle. But they didn't really have like an alternative for me that was realistic. Like, oh, if you just
For sure.
do XYZ. They were like, I don't know, you know, meds and more IVs. I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome.
I mean, seeing you, the visual of you going around the world with
Mm.
a hyperbaric oxygen tank or whatever you said, like that's pretty intense, dude. That's pretty intense. But I want to ask you
Yeah,
that last conversation because we breezed over it with you and Gaga, right? I'm assuming
yeah,
had like a one-on-one conversation, right? About yeah, and was there? I
yeah,
assume like you guys might have both had
yeah,
tears about you having to leave this. What was I mean, I'm hoping at this point your body wasn't functioning. Gaga did support you, and you gotta do this to live. Basically, what was that
yeah. I mean,
conversation like?
it was, I mean, I won't tell you the details and it's personal, but it was very supportive. And she also got like other higher up people to like give me other support as well
I
for
mean,
like the
she was.
first.
I'm just asking. The overall vibe of that talk with you and her was take care of yourself. You know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was like, obviously we wanted to be together because we're very close, really like best friends and used to working together all the time. So it was like we were just together all the time. So that was also part of why it was harder to leave too. It was like this is like my group, my crew. So like if I'm gonna be anywhere, this is like where I want to be. Even if I wasn't working, I'd just like be hanging out here.
So after you left, after you had that talk and left, we talked about you had very much similar to what I had. Remember, like this crash out and like you went back to your family, right? In Missouri.
Well, first I went to LA. So
Okay.
like my friend Sonia,
Mm-hmm.
who worked with us, like came with me to LA and she helped me find like the apartment I wanted on the beach. And I moved in there and I was like still kind of like on an adrenaline high, like painting every day and like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this. And it's kind of still was like blowing past whatever was happening with my body with like pure adrenaline.
Because you were on this ride of like anything is possible, I assume, right? And
Yeah.
you just yeah, right, yeah.
And kind of like still didn't want to rest because it's kind of like if I rested, then I would just not be able to get back up.
Well, dude, you were
So I
you
was
were
like,
trained going at 1,000 miles an hour for like 6 years at this point, right? So it's like, how
yeah.
do you even stop that?
So I was like trying to stay really busy. And then I had an incident at that apartment built. Like I loved that apartment, like right on the sand in Santa Monica. It
You had
was
a
like my dream.
there was a weird stalker situation, right? That we talked about.
Yeah.
You had to go through that.
That like the police were involved and stuff. So I had to move. So that like put a lot of extra stress on where I was already like trying to fight. Like, no, I'm not stressed. I'm like happy and great. So this like put like a cloud over me, this stalker thing.
Did your body though feel better pretty soon after leaving this rigorous Gaga
No,
thing?
it
No.
felt worse. So
Interesting.
it's like
Interesting.
I was fighting off this feeling of like everything collapsing. And then this weird situation happened, and I felt like I was gonna have a panic attack at any second. Every second, like somebody could like drop a pin, and I'd be like, so then I moved to this other apartment high up in my friend's building. There was like 24-hour cameras and security, and I still was scared. And then my mom came to visit me and was like, come home with me for a week or two. And so I packed like an overnight bag and came with her to St. Louis. Then once I got to my mom's house, I like slept for like 2 weeks. And that was the first time I just like, my body like shut down and was like, thank you. And that's when I kind of, like conked out and I didn't end up going back to my apartment.
Wow. Well, you saying that, I got to share something, triggered this for me. Like, I would be going so hard for my career that, like, when I would get a cold and I would have to, it would force me into that shutdown, I would actually be happy about it. Isn't that fucked up? I would
Yeah.
actually be like, oh, thank God I get to, like, actually take my foot off the gas because I can't put it on the gas right now. Like, it's impossible.
Yeah, it makes
But
sense.
looking back on that, I feel so, man, I just have so much like sympathy for that version of myself because to me that's fucked up. That I
Yeah.
knew that I'm thankful to have a cold is fucked up for me.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So I like just something about like maybe being with my mom and like having somebody like taking care of me, not having to like, I'm in this apartment building. There's like sounds in the hallways all the time,
Yeah,
or like
yeah.
order my groceries and get my things. Like I could just like sleep and relax and not have to worry about anything. And I kind of just like think my brain just was there for like a year. Like I just slept, was in bed,
Wow.
ate food. I mean, when my mom came to visit me, I was like 89 pounds.
Wow.
I'm not a big person. I mean, I'm like 100 pounds, but that's a sufficient amount of weight. So but I didn't even know. I knew I was skinnier, but I didn't realize that I was like terrifying looking. And it was just because I was sick.
And were
I was
you
eating the
alone? Were
same.
you alone a lot though, Tara? So nobody would like nobody was letting you know that you were terrifyingly underweight because you were alone a lot. Is that what was happening,
No, I
or
mean, I was like going out and seeing people in LA and stuff, but
you said you weren't aware though of that you were? Did somebody bring it to your attention and you're like, oh shit, I
because I
am
had
like,
to go to a doctor's appointment.
okay, okay,
And so they would always weigh me.
mm-hmm.
And there was like a certain time when like my mom was there and like I was afraid for her to see because I just like knew because how my clothes were fitting. I
Got
was
it.
like, uh-oh, like
Mm-hmm.
only wearing spandex things because everything was too big.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
it was like she saw that and she was like,
Wow.
she can like tell if I gain like an ounce. She's my mom. So it
Wow.
was
Yeah,
like seeing
moms
her
know
face
shit.
at the door. I was like, uh-oh, why are you looking at me like that?
So here you are a year into basically doing nothing and that, right? You just said that took place for a year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like just watching like TV, like Netflix and stuff and like loving it. Like I put my cell phone downstairs in the house because the sound of it vibrating on silent would give me such anxiety that I tried to put it like I had a huge room to stay in too. So I'd try to put it on the other side of the room, on the floor, on carpet. And when it vibrated, I could feel it and hear it, and it would like make my heart pound. So I ended up having it downstairs in the house.
Wow.
And just like being able to just relax and not have to go anywhere. I mean, to this day, I love that. Like people have like a day off and they want to like go do stuff and be active and like go places. And my favorite thing to do is like to not have to be anywhere and like just watch stupid TV and like lay down. It's like the most fun ever.
So funny.
I'm like, if I don't have to be anywhere,
How
like
does how does
don't
your
make
boy
me plans.
how does your boyfriend feel about that, right? Because it's like, no, we're like watching Netflix again. I'm sorry.
I
Like,
mean, luckily he likes the same things. We also like toys. We'll like put together Legos and like zone out and watch movies.
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, we're making light of this a little bit, but like you were really in a tough spot, to be honest, for that first year. Your whole system was in shock, basically, right? For that first year, though.
Yeah, I didn't
And
even like. I can't even tell you. I'll watch a show now or a movie that I know that I watched in like the first maybe 2 years that I was home, and I don't remember anything. Like it's like I'm watching it for the first time, and then like
wow.
little things will like I'll be like, did I watch this? And then there's like something in one episode. I'm like, oh yeah, I have seen this, but I couldn't tell you what happened, and I so like barely remember it that it seems like something I like watched in passing or something. It's the weirdest thing.
Mm,
So like for the first year and a half, maybe even 2 years, I was just like I don't even know what I wasn't doing anything, but I was doing a lot of things.
mm.
Like I was trying to do things. So I'd have like a cell phone and a laptop and the TV going and like drawing pad and a writing pad. I'd be like writing and drawing. Sometimes I'd have a canvas on my bed and I'd be painting.
Wow.
Because I just felt like if I didn't have 1,000 things happening at once, then it's like I needed so many
Like
stimulative things
the
happening.
scariest place was silence, right? The scariest place was
Yes.
nothing. Yeah.
It's like I could not have silence.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
I can like just zone out and watch something or like play a game. But at that time I needed like 10 things
Yeah.
occupying my mind
Yeah.
because I didn't want to have like a thought.
I almost feel like that was like your body's way of almost like you couldn't be with the silence, I feel like, because you were ignoring the messages that your body was giving you for so long. It's almost like being with a friend that you didn't listen to, that they were like
Yeah.
trying to tell you something, and just being alone in silence with that friend. How awkward would that be? It's like the
Yeah.
same shit. What I want to know though, during this period, Tara, like, did part of you, after a year of being in that way, want to check in with Gaga, the team, like, you know, because you'd form these close relationships?
Well, yeah, I
Or,
still like talk to people, but it took me like a little while. Like I needed my space. So like at some point I turned my phone off because people were trying to get a hold of me.
like, they
Like,
wanted to know
how
how
are you
you were
doing?
doing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like what's happening? How are you doing?
But
Are
that
you
was only
okay?
like
Like,
stressing you out, probably, to like reconnect at
yeah,
that point.
because I like didn't have the energy to talk,
Wow.
to speak out loud. I was just like,
Plus, honestly, it was probably triggering for you because it brought back all those, like, that anxiety and those emotions. Like you said, the foam was
yeah,
on
it
the
was like I felt
carpet.
like I had to like respond if somebody reached out to me, and if I didn't have it in me, then that was anxiety. So it was just like turn the phone off.
Clean break.
Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like nothing. None of this is work now. My mind was so trained to like be on it. Like you get an email, you get a text, you respond
Life or death, life or
immediately.
death, president.
I'm like,
Yeah.
Tara,
Yeah.
this is not like you do whatever you want to do. Like if somebody texts you, you don't have to respond within 5 minutes. This is not like
Man.
this doesn't work, but it's like hard to distinguish that when you're so used to having everything be like there's like 10 people who are all work people who might be texting you on behalf of the person you work for. So you're always like, oh.
Yeah. I want to know too, like, what are your thoughts, being that you worked, you know, in music for a while? There's this hyper turnover thing that happens in music, right? Like, you know, it's like who the biggest star is changes,
Yeah.
right? Like Katy Perry today isn't Katy Perry. I mean, you know, it's not the same. So, and there's 100,000 examples of that.
Yes.
You know, so what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are I've watched it like from somebody right next to me firsthand who, you know, wanted it really bad and was amazing, super talented. And other people I would meet and get to know who are maybe like later in their career and I've known who they are my whole life and loved them and never realized like, oh, even someone like that can feel like they're starting from scratch or
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
it's like that's what I dislike so much about the entertainment industry is that from like a spectator viewpoint we think that anyone who's made anything great is like there and that they're comfortable now, but that's opposite of how it is. It's like once someone has made something great and is known for making something great, they then have this constant anxiety and fight to make something better than that or to get higher than because now they're going to be critiqued upon that thing that they made and all of the the critics and the fans and this and that are constantly looking for something new and constantly going, oh, this isn't as good as that thing that you did. Or it's like, in like the 70s or something, people loved a band and they love that band today still. But nowadays, people are obsessed with one person for like a month and then they're obsessed with somebody else.
I know. Yeah,
So
it's true.
being like a
True.
superstar now it's just a whole different ballgame. In order to stay at like the top of people's like, this is my favorite thing, if that's what you're going for, you can go for like, I'm just gonna make amazing things and not care if I'm being played on the radio or if I'm selling albums or if I'm winning awards or whatever. But if you're like playing that race of like being the best and getting the awards and on the radio, you have to like be playing this psychotic game of this constant thing. So it's like the highest you can possibly go. Then it's like this bigger anxiety of now they're expecting this. And then if you do something that's they think isn't as great, they're going to be like, oh, it wasn't as great as that. It's insane. People are like, oh, I love that Ronette song still.
I know.
You're like, yeah, that was probably really cool that you could do that.
From what I heard, like celebrities, there's certain celebrities and entertainers that are smart. They said they don't look at press, like they don't read press.
But
about
I think
themselves
everyone says that. I have literally
but
seen.
You think they lie about that? Some of them,
do.
Right.
Like anyone who's doing an interview, why are you doing an interview? Do you live in like a house with no internet? You have a PR agent if you're doing an interview.
Right. So you're saying on the interview you could be questioned about, oh, why wasn't this as well received as the last thing you did? You're saying that
I'm
can
just
come
saying
up in
like
the
anyone
interview?
who cares about doing an interview obviously like they have a PR person who's telling them what's happening in the world if they're not pressing their phone for a Google result.
Well, it's like there's yes to do an interview, yes, but then say it gets 1 million views, right? And then there's going to be 100,000 comments on the interview. Let's just say they don't have to look at the 100,000 comments on the interview.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I think maybe there's some people I believe who like really don't have social media accounts, like celebrities like that. I'm like, dope. There are like huge celebrities who don't have any social media accounts.
See, I'm a fan of mental health, Tara. So I'm like, anything we could do to like put the ball in our court
well,
a
that's
little
what
more,
I'm saying is like
for it.
the celebrities who literally are like, I don't have a Twitter and I don't have an Instagram and that's it.
Dope.
I'm like, that's fucking dope all day. Like I love that because these platforms now are literally just they're ad revenue. That's all they do. They pay you to post and they're getting all the revenue from ads. Nothing is real. Like none of this is real. As long as you know that, then like, okay, look on there. But don't think that anyone's posting anything real. This is all an illusion. We're all being paid to post things. Anyways, but when people have social media accounts and then say that they don't read anything about themselves, it's a nice thought. And I'm sure that the intention is there. You know, I'm sure that like they do intend to not go out of their way to read things. Mm-hmm. But I think that if you're an artist, you're like innately want feedback on your art.
You want to know that your work is making a difference, right? Like,
or even that people like it. Like, how did I do?
Yeah, you want to have, I assume, some type of impact with your art or what you're creating, right? So like, why would you not look for that response when part of the reason why you're making your art or whatever you're creating is you want to see how it's received.
Yeah.
Or you want it. Yeah.
I mean, I could see like not reading like mean critics, but like, you know, there'd be times when I like wouldn't read the Instagram or Twitter comments because there were so many that I was just like, oh, cool, everyone's being nice today. You know, I wouldn't go like, but it was just on my own feed. I wasn't like searching things out because I didn't have the time. So I can understand that. But like, if you're like acting in a movie, you're telling me that like, if your Twitter timeline's like, oh, Samson stars in movie and he did amazing, that you're not like, click.
Oh, let me see what's going on. Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, if you can avoid doing that, you have incredible self-control, let's just say, right? Because it's hard to resist the urge, right?
Yeah, and why not read something that's praising you?
Well, I've heard people say that you don't want to get too attached to the praise because then the negative feedback will affect you.
This is just too much thinking to me. It's like, then what do you do if you walk outside and somebody's like, hey, you did great, or hey, you suck? You're like, la, 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 la. Like, people exist. They're gonna critique what you do. It's like, We don't live in a vacuum. Come
No,
on,
no,
be
no, 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 that
realistic.
shit was funny. That's just funny. No,
If you're famous or you're on like a level where people in the world are critiquing your work, like you're gonna avoid that.
So what are you proposing is kind of the way to go about it, is like just kind of don't let negative feedback
All right, here's what
phase
I would
you, or
say.
what?
I
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
like, what I do is, if I'm more, of course, more concerned with who my product is for. That's
Right.
my number one concern. But if the person my product is for is very concerned with what critics in social media and stuff says, then, I might want to know what that says before they do or at the same time they do so I can like help to inform my decisions. But I don't take it personally because
Mm.
people that write things online, it's not personal. It's just like
Because like
the
most of them
crazy
don't even know
gibberings.
most of them don't even know you. I heard somebody say that it's like if somebody makes a negative comment about you, like from seeing you online, they don't really even know you, so you can't take that shit in.
Well, plus it's
Um,
because it's the way that people talk online. It's deliberate. It's trolling. So it's not like you can't take it. People say insane things because it's their only outlet to be insane. When Gaga made the littlemonsters.com website, it was so that kids would have a place to go where there wasn't any trolls. And people would still, there'd be like 100 troll accounts with the same picture that would appear and write like really awful comments. And they would go after and try to delete them, and they would just keep making them. There
hmm.
are people who entertain themselves by going
Trolling.
on the
Yeah, yeah,
internet
yeah, yeah,
and being
yeah.
nasty. So if you allow that to like capture you, it's like, well, that's why they're there. It's like if
Right.
you're at a baseball game and the guy was like, hey, bada, bada. It's like, he's not telling you that you have a small dick.
Yeah,
It's like, it's not that your personality sucks. It's heckling.
yeah.
So you can't like get all into your head like, am I a bad person? No,
Hmm.
it's like some 12-year-old in their basement who's like, what am I going to do today? Oh, this looks fun. I'm going to like take out my inner rage on some rando. So I think
Yeah.
anything that actually pertains to something that you could like utilize, like I would look at photos of what happened that day and see how it turned out in pictures and see if people liked certain things. But random comments that were like, eat shit. And you're like, okay. It's like, what am I going to do with that? Or like, I hate this look. I'd be like, cool. Well, the person I did it for liked it. So
That's all that matters.
there's always going to
Um,
be a couple voices that are like, no. But there's a million more that are like,
it,
yay, I love you.
it's funny. It's funny that you say that, Joe, because I feel like when success finds you with whatever it is you're creating or doing, it's like a blessing to have grown more inside of yourself. Does that make sense? It's
Yeah.
like if you don't know yourself and you haven't grown yet, and like that's why child actors, bro, child actors,
Oh my God, I feel
that's
awful.
hard. That's so
I mean,
hard.
that's why I think it's silly to like say that you ignore all this criticism because I'll have like a look that I did. I had to finish it up early. I know it's not the best. It's not like something I'm super proud of. And maybe that particular look, like for whatever reason, like a million fans who like are like, oh my God, posting great things about it. I don't take that as like, oh, I should do that more often. I
Hmm.
just take it as they love her and they're like giving her extra love today. So it's like you have to know yourself and your own art and how good you are and have
Yeah.
your own self criticism. And you can utilize these tools to maybe like however you want to, or don't use them at all. If it affects you a lot, then don't look on the internet. Because I do know a lot of people who get very personally affected by what people say on the internet. And if that happens,
And
you have to
these are
know
people with big followings that you're talking about too, I assume, right? Like people with bigger
people with
because I'm
bigger
like
followings, people with me.
right.
I mean,
Mhm.
if people's comments, like that one out of 1,000 that's mean, if that personally affects you, you know yourself well enough to know that you're going to fixate on something mean that one person says, and that you're not going to absorb all of the love. So you shouldn't be on the internet. You shouldn't be seeking those things out. But I think the people that do that because that's like something that they need. It's like if you're personally searching for bad things about yourself, then like
No, you're saying there are people that do that. They like almost get off in some way
it's like
on
they
the
want to get
negative
upset
comment.
about something, or maybe they don't. But it's like if it affects you that much, don't seek out bad things about yourself.
Because like that comment's gonna be there, Tar. Like it's gonna be there somewhere. So right.
Like
If you're
anybody,
not
even if
sensitive.
you have like 10 people who follow you,
Yeah.
you can find somebody who writes something mean. You
Right.
can get in a
Right.
fight with a random troll if you want. If you so seek it out, if you post a picture of yourself, I'm sure you'll find somebody to be like, boo, ugly.
Yeah.
It's like everything I post, there's like a million, you get a bunch of nice stuff, and there's always like a couple trolls in there who are just like, die. It's like, okay.
Do you just handle that in stride now yourself? If there's a negative comment, are you at a place where you could kind of?
I mean, I usually don't notice them. Sometimes it'll be like a year later on a YouTube video, and I'm like, oh my god, I think it's funny because it's like when they're really nasty, it's like the amount of energy that somebody put into this. This video made them so angry. But then at the same time, you're like, no, it really didn't. They're just like going through channels and like blah, 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 blah. But it's more, I get more concerned when it's like the other kids who follow me. I'll only notice a nasty comment because like a bunch of fans have commented on it, like getting in a fight with somebody. And I'm like, guys, it's not even a real person. Their photo was like a...
Most people will have your back.
They'll all like attack somebody and they'll get upset. And it will upset them. And I'm like, don't be upset. It's like, it's not a real person. It's like somebody's fake account. And nobody cares.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
And so Gaga set up this thing called Little Monsters, really is like kind of like an anti-bullying platform.
Yeah, it was like a special website just for like the fans to go on and have chat rooms and all sorts of fun things. And like, I think it's still active, but they don't really use it anymore. But it was really fun. And we would both go on there and like pop in chat rooms and surprise them. And they'd like be like, oh my God, you're in the chat room.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Tara, let's bring it home with this. So just lastly, thank you for coming on today. This has been super dope.
I hope I haven't been too off topic or too weird.
No, I feel like we covered a lot of good shit. So thank you. The one thing I wanted to say is like talk to us about kind of what's on the horizon for you right now that you're excited about. Are you trying to like do more painting? I know you're a painter.
Yeah, I actually haven't painted in a little while. I need to because it makes me very happy and chilled out. Right now I've been doing like virtual consultations right now, like beauty consultations because of, the situation, the virus. And I'm going to be creative directing a music video in the next month or two. So I have like some projects coming up, but this whole...
Is that going to be virtual or are you going to go actually in person for this? Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty impressive.
So I have some in-person things, but in the meantime, just doing things virtually because of this whole Corona situation.
And you feel like you've had the wisdom in like you don't want to assume. I'm assuming like you're not going to push yourself to like those
okay,
limits,
on the health tip, I did finally, once I came out of my little zone out, I did get properly tested for Lyme disease. And like my other doctor had only done one of the tests, and I guess it's not as effective. And it turned out I have late stage Lyme. Is that what it's called when it's like you've had...
chronic Lyme or late stage Lyme. Yeah.
So I have no idea how I got it. Like I don't remember having like a bite, but I've been to a lot of different countries and different places. So I don't know. And I have a lot of hair. And so I think chances are if I got one, we were somewhere random and it probably would have bit me on my head, and so I never saw it. That's my only theory, is
Yeah.
because
The thing about Lyme disease, like, is like, okay, it's like I've had Lyme disease, I've had to work through it, is getting the diagnosis for Lyme is like a big W win. Cause like people go their whole lives with a mystery illness. Do you know what
yeah,
I'm trying to say? And then they get put on a drug that's like not even for
that's what
Lyme
I'm saying. Is
disease. Yeah.
I was on Plaquenil, and
Hmm.
the other one, I forget what it's, Cellcept. It was like something you give to people who have an organ transplant so that their
Yeah.
body doesn't
Wow.
reject it. And I got put on that after the brain thing in South Africa by the doctors there, because I said I was diagnosed with lupus and I had this brain incident. And so, I couldn't stay long. So they were like, all right, we're going to assume that you now have CNS lupus, like it's in your spinal cord. This will help. It's on this Plaquenil that's used for lupus. That over time can degenerate, like macular degeneration. So I had like an eye test where I was having some sort of buildup, and they were like, you have to get off of this. So I got the Lyme diagnosis. They weren't like, you don't have lupus, but they were like, we think that all of these symptoms are this Lyme disease, and that neurological incident could have been the Lyme disease as well.
Wow.
So it has helped a ton, because the doctor who I see now specializes in Lyme and has me on all these different antibiotics that are specific, and like switches them. And, it's a long process when you have like late stage Lyme if you don't catch it right away. But it has made me look at everything differently. I've been to so many different doctors. I've had so many different like treatments that just like, and tests, like CAT scans and MRIs and like things hooked up overnight, and nobody, they'd all be like, I don't know, like why does this hurt so bad? What's happening with this? Oh, it's probably just part of the lupus. So getting that proper diagnosis, it's like they think you want them to say you don't have this, like you'll be relieved. But when you're sick and you don't know why, all you want is for somebody to say, this is what it is, and here's what we can do about it.
When I got told that I had Lyme, I did cartwheels in the doctor's office, straight up, like I literally did, and tears of joy, because how are you supposed to get better if you're not even knowing what you're
And then
working
you just
on,
feel crazy.
right?
You're
So
like,
it's like,
so am
yeah,
I just
yeah.
really exhausted? So I'm thinking that I'm.
Yeah, and it's not well understood by like doctors that don't understand Lyme. It's really not well understood. So anybody that's listening, like if you've got a mystery
Do
thing
both Lyme tests,
happening,
please.
like yeah, do double and triple Lyme tests.
I think it's the
Um,
Western blot
yeah.
is one of them. And that,
Even they could be shaky. I'll be honest with you. I had both Lyme tests and it was negative, but then I got treated for Lyme and like all my symptoms got better. Like, so like the Lyme tests aren't perfect, but there's a Western blot test and then there's what's called an ELISA test. And I think that the ELISA test is the shaky one, more shaky
okay.
one. I think the
Yeah, I think the
Western
Western
blot
blot
test
is
is
the
more
more,
reliable. Yeah.
but you don't
Reliable.
have to like be like, oh, I have a tick, and then, oh, I have the rash. But that's what
Yeah, a lot of
people
people don't
think, is
remember a
that they're
bite.
like, well, I never
Yeah.
got bitten. I didn't know I got bitten by a tick, but I definitely have Lyme, and I've had it long enough that I have late stage Lyme. So
Yeah. Dude, Tara, your life is like a movie. It is like not being able to afford the cigarettes. I feel like we just went on a journey to like Nelson Mandela's doctor saving your life. And I just so many visual moments, right? Along this crazy journey you've been on, and I just want to say thank you for sharing it. I think it's going to be inspiring to some
oh, I
people.
hope so.
So thank you.
I know, I hope I covered the right things. I know there's a lot of things we didn't get to talk about, but I hope I talked about
We
the right things.
we hit all the big. I think we hit the big points.
Definitely take care of yourself,
And
and don't don't neglect your body like I did.
that's the
Yes.
message we want to hear
I
from
want
other
that to be
people,
the
right?
takeaway.
That's
Don't take away
yeah,
from this.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so if I want to achieve my goals, I just have to like throw caution to the wind and do anything I need to. And if I feel like I'm going to die, I'm probably almost there. That's not the message. Definitely not.
Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that. Man, thank you so much, Tara. This has been really great. Where can people find you?
I am all over the internet. um, tarasavelo.com is my website, but I'm also on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, Tara Savelo. It's all the same.
It's like as a makeup artist, you got to be on
Yes,
IG,
I
right?
am.
Of course. All right. We'll link it up in the show notes. Thank you so much for appearing today. This has been
Thank you
great.
for having
Thank
me.
you. Of course. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and I hope you got a lot out of this. I know I did, and we'll see you next episode.